let's dive in. Today, we're tackling this really fascinating idea
Oh, yeah.
that each of us, like every single person,
Yeah.
has this special purpose
Yeah.
in life.
Right.
Almost like a blueprint, Something we chose even before we were born.
Yeah. Pretty wild, right?
I know. It's kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it.
Well, and that's exactly what we're going to be exploring today with Caroline Myss's book,
Oh, cool.
Sacred Contracts.
Okay.
She calls this blueprint our sacred contract. It's like this soul-level agreement we made, kind of outlining our purpose in this life, the challenges we might face, the gifts we bring.
So it's almost like we signed this spiritual contract.
Yeah.
Before we even got here.
Before we even got here, exactly.
But, when I think about contracts, there's usually an exchange involved.
Yeah.
So what's the payment in this case?
Right. Well, think of the payment as the personal growth and insight that you gain throughout your life,
Yeah.
It's about who you become through all these experiences. Yeah. Not just like what you achieve.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
Right.
So are you saying that if we understand this contract,
Uh-huh.
we might be able to approach those ups and downs in life with more intention?
Exactly.
And maybe even feel a little more empowered.
That's the idea.
Okay.
It's not like a magic formula that's going to make all your problems disappear.
Right.
But it gives you a new lens to look through, to find some clarity in all the chaos.
I like that, yeah.
Right. Like, take Eliza, for example. She was a gym teacher who had this, life-altering accident.
Oh, wow.
That left her unable to, continue her career.
Wow, that's got to be tough.
Oh, it was huge.
I can only imagine.
It was a huge blow.
Like how lost she must have felt.
Yeah, at first she felt like her purpose was just gone.
Oh, yeah.
Like her whole life plan was just, ripped away. But then something really interesting happened.
Okay.
When she started viewing that accident, not as this tragic end, but as what Myss calls a contract intervention.
It's a contract intervention.
Like a redirection within her sacred contract.
Okay, so instead of seeing it as this horrible thing
that
happened to her, she started to see it as
part of a bigger plan.
Okay.
As part of her contract.
Wow, and how did that change things for her?
Well, it really helped her shift her whole perspective,
Okay.
Instead of focusing on what she could no longer do,
Right.
she started exploring, who she could become through this experience.
Okay.
It wasn't about that specific job anymore,
Right.
but about the lessons and the growth that could come out of this, really difficult situation.
Wow, I love that shift.
Yeah.
Because, even though the path changed, it sounds like her purpose was still unfolding.
Absolutely.
Okay, but how do we even begin to figure out our own contract? Is there a cosmic rule book we can look at?
Well, there's no rule book exactly, but there are clues.
Okay.
And one of the most fascinating ways that Myss helps us kind of unlock those clues is through the concept of archetypes.
Archetypes, so the hero's journey and all that.
You're on the right track.
Okay.
Yeah, those universal recurring patterns of energy and behavior that we see across cultures and throughout history.
Yeah.
Think of them as the characters in your life story,
Right.
each with its own set of, strengths, weaknesses, motivations. They're like the actors in your contract.
Oh, okay.
Laying out the terms.
So is it like having a warrior archetype that pushes me to be brave?
Yeah, exactly.
Or like a caregiver archetype that makes me want to nurture others?
Precisely.
Oh, okay.
Myss dives into a whole bunch of archetypes.
Okay.
And some of them are pretty unexpected, too.
Oh, really?
See examples of feminine archetypes in different cultures, like the Virgin Mary, Mother Nature, or the Greek goddesses like Athena, Venus, Sophia.
Wow. That's a lot of archetypes.
Yeah.
So wait, are we supposed to figure out which ones we embody?
Right.
And then try to try to live up to them?
It's not really about trying to be a certain archetype or force yourself into a specific role. It's more about recognizing which ones resonate most strongly with you.
Okay.
And understanding how they might be influencing your life already.
Oh.
And Myss uses some really vivid examples in her book to kind of show how this works in real life.
Oh, can you give us an example?
Absolutely.
I'd love to see how these archetypes actually play out in someone's life.
Well, there's this really great story about a guy named Ollie.
Okay.
Whose abandoned child archetype really shaped his behavior as an adult, He felt abandoned by his mother as a child. And it created this this deep-seated fear
of
responsibility and commitment that really followed him into adulthood and affected all his relationships.
So even if we're not like aware of those archetypes, they can still be like operating behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely.
Impacting our lives.
Yeah, sometimes in really profound ways.
Yeah, that's kind of unsettling, but also intriguing.
It is, right.
Yeah.
It highlights why understanding these archetypes can be such a powerful tool for like self-awareness and growth. It's about, peeling back the layers and seeing those unconscious patterns that might be like driving our behavior.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
This is getting really interesting.
Yeah.
I can see how all of this is starting to like connect back to that idea of this contract. But if our archetypes can like influence us so much, can we like change them?
That's a great question.
Or are we just like stuck with them?
It's not so much about changing them. It's more about understanding them and integrating them. Myss argues that each archetype, even the ones that seem negative, actually plays a role in our growth. It's like each one is a teacher offering us these valuable lessons if we're willing to listen.
Right. I am all about learning from those teachers.
Right.
But how do we even like begin to do that?
Well, it starts with self-reflection. Myss suggests asking yourself these powerful questions. Like, how does this archetype show up in your life? What are its positive aspects? What are its negative aspects? What lessons have you learned from it?
So it's almost like we have to get to know our archetypes.
Yeah.
Like they're these little
like separate people within us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I like that.
And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
Myss says each archetype, when paired with a specific area of your life, like your career, your relationships, your health, creates unique vulnerability.
A vulnerability.
Yeah, think of it as an area where you might be more susceptible to, challenges or blockages.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Are you saying that these archetypes can actually like affect our health?
It's not that they cause illnesses, but they can highlight like areas of weakness or imbalance. Maybe like you're having difficulty in your relationships. Well, that might point to an imbalance in the archetype. That's kind of governing that part of your life.
Wow, this is all connected, man.
It is. It's all connected.
I'm telling you, my mind is officially blown. This is like way more than just figuring out your purpose. This is like understanding the deeper like patterns that shape your whole life.
It is.
Okay, this is really cool.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into this,
yeah,
I want to hear more about those contract interventions you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, what are those exactly?
Right, those unexpected twists and turns that can sometimes feel like fate's stepping in.
Okay. Yeah.
But Myss suggests they're not random. They're actually part of your sacred contract. Kind of nudging you towards growth and fulfillment.
So, like, even getting fired from a job could be a contract intervention.
It's possible.
Leading to a more, like, aligned path.
Exactly. They often show up as challenges or setbacks. Things that we wouldn't necessarily choose for ourselves.
Right.
But Myss says if we can shift our perspective, we can start to see them as these incredible opportunities to transformation.
This is like that saying, when one door closes, another one opens.
Exactly.
So instead of just freaking out when something goes wrong, we can like take a breath and ask ourselves, how is this serving my sacred contract?
That's powerful, right?
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really reassuring.
Yeah.
But what about those times when it feels like the universe is just straight up messing with us?
Right.
Like when just like terrible things happen to good people.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're going to explore a lot more deeply in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, folks, buckle up.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're about to go even deeper into this fascinating world of sacred contracts.
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Welcome back, everyone. So we left off talking about those contract interventions, those unexpected things that happen in life. And sometimes it can feel like, the universe is just like messing with us.
Right. And it's important to remember that those those events, they can be really challenging, you know?
Yeah.
It's not about, like, sugarcoating difficult experiences or saying everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, because sometimes life just throws you a real gut punch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do we make sense of those really tough times through this idea of a sacred contract?
Right. Well, it's not necessarily about, like, easy answers.
Yep.
It's more about expanding our understanding of the soul's journey.
Okay.
Think about it like this.
Okay.
You're on a hiking trip.
Okay.
And you come to, like, a really steep, rocky section.
Yeah.
It's challenging, maybe even a little scary, but it leads to this breathtaking vista that you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
I like that. It's like those tough times, they can force us to, like, grow and learn in ways that we wouldn't have chosen for ourselves.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, it leads to a more, like, expansive view.
Exactly. And Myss reminds us that these contract interventions, they can often be disguised as challenges or setbacks, you know?
Yeah.
They might even feel like punishments.
Yeah.
But if we can shift our perspective, we might see them as opportunities for profound transformation.
I remember you mentioned a story about Maureen.
Oh, yes.
Who had this, like, life-altering health challenge.
Yeah. Maureen developed a tumor in her ovaries.
Oh, wow.
And had to have a hysterectomy.
Oh, gosh.
And it was devastating for her. She'd always wanted to have children.
Yeah.
And suddenly that dream felt shattered.
I can't imagine, like, the grief and the loss.
It's huge.
She must have felt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so easy to fall into that why me trap in those situations.
Oh, totally.
And Maureen definitely went through that.
Yeah.
You know, she felt like a victim, like life had dealt her this really unfair blow.
Right.
But over time, as she began to process her grief, she started to view her experience through the lens of her sacred contract.
So she was able to shift
from
feeling like a victim to seeing it as, like...
Yeah, as part of a larger plan.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about denying her pain or pretending that everything happened for a reason.
Yeah.
It was about seeking the lessons and the wisdom within that experience. And she realized that her contract wasn't about having biological children.
Okay.
It was about experiencing motherhood in a different way.
Wow.
And eventually, she adopted a child, which, you know, really fulfilled that deep longing in her heart.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Even through her loss, she found a way to fulfill that part of her sacred contract.
Right. It's a reminder that sometimes those detours lead to even more incredible destinations.
It really is. It's a reminder that, like, sometimes what we think we want isn't actually what's best for us.
Absolutely. And speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, right?
Yeah.
And our capacity to find meaning and purpose, even in the face of adversity.
Yeah. And I think that's so important because a lot of times it's easy to, like, get caught up in the tragedy of situations. Exactly. And forget that. Like, there might be something good that comes out of it.
Yeah. It's not about making life easy, right? It's about pushing us towards growth and expansion.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. But let's get practical.
Okay.
How can we start uncovering our own sacred contract?
Okay.
I remember you mentioned a tool called the archetypal wheel.
Yes.
Can you explain how that works?
Absolutely. So think of it as a circular chart with 12 sections or houses, as Myss calls them.
Okay.
And each one represents a different area of your life. Yeah. So like your personality, your values, relationships, career, and so on.
So it's like a cosmic map of your soul's journey.
Exactly.
Okay, cosmic map, I'm intrigued.
Right.
So how do the archetypes we were talking about before fit into this?
Well, you take the 12 archetypes that resonate most strongly with you, and you assign them to those houses.
Okay, so it's like a cosmic game of mix and match.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a cosmic game of mix and match.
I like it.
So, for example, if, like, the warrior archetype really speaks to you, you might place it in the house that represents, like, your career.
Oh, okay.
Suggesting that you're expressing that archetype through your work.
Ah, so it's not just about, like, identifying the archetype. It's about seeing how they, like, interact.
Yeah, how they show up in different areas of your life.
Okay.
And what's really fascinating is that each of those houses also corresponds to a specific energetic vulnerability.
Hold on.
Yeah.
So, like, the placement of my archetypes on this wheel
right.
can tell me something about my physical health.
It can offer insights.
Okay.
Again, it's not about diagnosing illnesses. It's about understanding that mind-body connection. Right. So let's say you put the saboteur archetype in the house that deals with, your health and daily routines. Well, you might be prone to self-sabotaging behaviors that affect your well-being, like maybe you struggle with sleep or you constantly overwork yourself.
That's wild. So by paying attention to these connections, we might be able to address those vulnerabilities before they become major issues.
Exactly. It's about preventative care.
Okay.
Both physically and emotionally.
Yeah, I love that.
And by understanding our archetypes and how they interact with our lives, we can start to make choices that support our well-being.
I'm telling you, I'm making my own archetypal wheel.
You should. It's really powerful.
After this, for sure.
Yeah.
But where do we even begin? How do we choose those 12 archetypes?
Well, that's where your intuition comes in.
Oh.
Myss provides a detailed list in her book, but she also encourages us to go beyond that list.
Okay.
And really tap into what resonates with us.
So, if a certain, I don't know, mythical figure.
Yeah, totally.
Or even a character from a book, really speaks to me. That could be a sign of an archetype.
Absolutely.
That I embody.
Yeah, think about the figures that have always, fascinated you.
Okay.
The ones that embody qualities that you admire or maybe even fear. Those strong reactions can point to archetypes that are at work within you.
This is starting to feel like a spiritual treasure hunt.
Yeah, it is.
I love it.
It is.
Okay, so once we've identified our 12 archetypes, how do we actually place them on the wheel?
Right. Well, trust your gut.
Okay.
Myss offers some guidance, but she also encourages us to follow our intuition.
Okay.
Start with the placements that feel obvious and then play around with the others.
So it's more about feeling it out.
Yeah.
Than thinking about it too much.
It's which archetype feels most at home in this particular house.
Yes, exactly.
It's about listening to that inner wisdom and trusting your own process. And as you start mapping out your wheel, you might be surprised by the insights that emerge. It can be like holding up a mirror to your soul.
Wow, okay.
Right.
So once we have our wheel, all filled out, what do we do with it?
Right. Well, it's more than just a pretty picture. Myss provides these exercises and questions to help you really explore the meanings of those pairings. The archetype to house pairings.
Yeah.
The real work begins when you start reflecting on those connections.
So it's not just about identifying the archetypes. It's about understanding how they're influencing.
Yeah, how they're showing up.
Yeah, our lives and choices.
Exactly. So for example, if you've got, the victim archetype in the house that deals with relationships.
Okay.
You might ask yourself, do I tend to attract partners who reinforce my victimhood? Or am I sabotaging my relationships by playing the victim role?
Okay, those are tough questions.
They are tough questions.
But I can see how asking those questions could lead to some serious breakthroughs.
Absolutely. It's about getting honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
And recognizing those patterns that might be holding us back. But remember, it's not about judgment or blame.
Right.
It's about compassionately understanding those patterns.
Yeah.
So we can start to shift them.
Okay, I like that.
Right.
This is powerful stuff.
It is powerful.
But it also sounds like a lot of work.
It is.
Kind of like doing therapy on yourself.
It is an ongoing process.
Yeah.
But remember, you don't have to do it all at once.
Okay.
Right? Approach it with a sense of curiosity and playfulness even.
Okay.
It's about exploration and discovery.
Yeah.
Not about getting it perfect.
Okay. That makes me feel better. It's and we're all on this journey of getting to know ourselves. Yeah. And this is just one tool.
Exactly.
To help us along the way.
And as we deepen our understanding of our sacred contract,
yeah.
we'll find that it's not this rigid set of rules.
Okay.
It's a dynamic and evolving blueprint for our lives.
Yeah.
It's something that we're constantly co-creating.
I like that, co-creating.
Yeah.
Okay, this is all starting to click for me. I can't wait to dive into my own archetypal wheel.
You should.
But before we move on, what about the skeptics out there?
Right.
Yeah. The people who are listening to this and they're like,
yeah,
this is all a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, I would say to them,
Yeah.
keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Even if you're not sure about the spiritual aspects of it, exploring these archetypes can still be incredibly valuable for personal growth,
Yeah.
It's like learning a new language for understanding yourself and your motivations.
Okay, so even if you don't believe in the idea of this predetermined contract,
exactly,
working with these concepts can still give you some valuable insights into yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you might be surprised by what you discover along the way.
That's a great point. Welcome back, deep divers. I am so ready to really dig into these archetypes.
Yeah, it's like we're meeting the cast of characters in our own lives.
I like that, our soul's personal drama, right?
Exactly. Remember, these archetypes, they're like universal patterns of energy and behavior. They're the forces that are kind of working behind the scenes, shaping our experiences.
And misses that by understanding these characters.
Yes.
We can get all this insight into ourselves, our relationships, and even, those unexpected events that happen, like those contract interventions.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing what roles these archetypes are playing in our lives so we can actually start working with them consciously.
Okay, so let's meet some of these characters. Which ones do you think are the most important to understand?
Well, Myss dives into a whole bunch, but some of the most common and impactful ones, I think, are the child, the victim, the prostitute, and the saboteur.
Ooh, those sound juicy.
Yeah, right.
Let's start with the child.
Okay.
Because I feel like we could all relate to that one.
Oh, absolutely. The child represents our innocence, our vulnerability, our need for nurturing.
Yeah.
And just like real children, it can express itself in ways that are both, delightful and challenging.
So a healthy expression of the child archetype might be someone who's playful and creative.
Yeah.
And just full of wonder.
Exactly.
While an unhealthy expression might be someone who's really clingy or demanding.
Yes.
Or even afraid to grow up.
Exactly. And remember how we talked about the archetypal wheel? How an archetype plays out can really depend on where it falls on that wheel.
Right. So if I have the child archetype in the area that's related to my career, it might show up as bringing that playful energy.
Exactly. Think about teachers.
Yeah.
Artists, anyone who brings that sense of childlike joy to their profession, that's the child archetype in action.
I love that. Okay, so it's not just about the archetype itself.
Right.
It's about how it it interacts with different parts of our life.
It's all about the context.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And Myss gives some really compelling examples in her book.
Oh, yeah. Tons.
Remember Ollie?
Yes.
Whose abandoned child archetype was unconsciously driving his behavior.
Yeah.
He had that fear of commitment, the responsibility.
It stemmed from his childhood.
Yeah.
He was constantly recreating those experiences of abandonment in his relationships until he started to heal that wounded inner child.
Yeah. And that's a powerful example.
It is.
Of how understanding these archetypes can help us make sense of our patterns.
Absolutely.
And then hopefully make different choices.
Exactly. It's about bringing that awareness to the unconscious.
Yeah.
So we can become more conscious creators of our lives.
Okay, I like that. Okay, let's move on to the victim archetype.
Okay.
This one, I feel this one's a little bit heavy.
It is a bit heavier.
But I have a feeling it's pretty common.
It is, unfortunately.
So what is that all about?
So the victim represents that part of us that feels powerless.
Okay.
Helpless, at the mercy of outside forces.
Right. And it's that voice inside that's poor me, why does this always happen to me?
Exactly.
Always getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
Blaming other people for their problems.
And feeling like they have no control.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the classic victim pattern.
And where does that come from, do you think?
Well, a lot of times it comes from early experiences like childhood abuse, neglect, where someone really was powerless.
Right.
But it can also develop later in life if someone feels trapped or repeatedly disempowered.
So it's like they get stuck in this loop.
Yes.
And they just keep attracting experiences.
Yeah, it confirms their belief that they're a victim.
Exactly. And breaking free from that can be really hard.
It can be really challenging.
Myssa tells the story of Tim.
Oh, yeah, Tim.
Who was always feeling victimized, even by the smallest things.
Oh, totally. He was afraid to speak up to a cashier who gave him the wrong change.
Yes, exactly. It's the victim archetype can show up.
It can show up in those everyday moments. Yeah. And it wasn't until Tim, like, really confronted that pattern and started to assert himself that he was able to kind of break free.
So the key to dealing with that victim archetype is, like, taking back our power.
Absolutely.
Yeah, realizing we do have choices.
It's about shifting from, like, why is this happening to me to what can I do about it?
Oh, that's good.
Right. It's recognizing that while we can't always control what happens, we can choose how we respond.
That's powerful.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to the prostitute archetype.
Okay.
This one sounds intriguing and maybe a little scandalous.
It can be, but remember, Myss is using this archetype metaphorically.
Okay.
She's not talking about literal prostitution.
Okay.
But that part of ourselves that, like, compromises our values or betrays our integrity for some perceived gain.
So it's like when someone stays in a job they hate just for the money.
Exactly.
Or, like, pretends to agree with someone just to avoid conflict.
Yes, it's about silencing our truth.
Yeah.
Or betraying ourselves to gain security, approval, or something external.
And honestly, I think we've all been there.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when we're feeling, like, insecure or afraid.
Right.
It's easy to compromise.
Yeah.
To avoid those uncomfortable feelings.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
Mullen shares this really heart-wrenching story about Ronnie. Who was a sex worker and was unable to break free from that life.
Oh, wow.
Even while he was facing AIDS.
Gosh.
He just felt trapped, like he had no other options.
That one really stuck with me.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder of how that archetype can, like, lead us down this path of self-betrayal.
It can, if we're not careful.
Yeah.
And the key to dealing with this archetype is, like, recognizing those situations where we're selling ourselves short.
Okay.
It's about choosing integrity over expediency.
Yeah.
Even if it means facing our fears and stepping outside our comfort zone.
It's like reclaiming our power and saying, I deserve to live a life that's true to myself.
Yes, exactly.
Even if it's hard.
Even if it's hard, exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Okay, ready for our last character?
Bring it on.
Okay, let's talk about the saboteur.
The saboteur.
That sneaky little voice inside that loves to undermine our happiness and success.
Oh, I know that voice so well.
Right. It's like our inner critic.
Yeah, constantly whispering doubts and fears.
Exactly. You're not good enough. You're going to fail.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
You don't deserve to be happy.
Yep. It's like it wants to keep me small and safe, but it really just keeps me stuck.
It does. It keeps us stuck. And Mrs. says, it often comes from a place of fear.
Okay.
Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of not being loved.
So, like, we sabotage ourselves.
Yeah.
Because deep down, we're afraid of what will happen if we actually, like, shine.
It's a very common pattern.
Wow.
And it can show up in so many ways.
Yeah.
Maybe you procrastinate on a project that you're really excited about, or you pick apart every flaw, or you engage in, like, self-destructive behaviors.
Right.
Overeating, substance abuse.
So how do we deal with that?
Yeah.
Do we try to, like, silence it, ignore it, fight it?
Myss suggests a more, like, compassionate approach. She says, instead of, like, judging or fighting the saboteur, try to see it as, like, a wounded part of yourself that's actually trying to protect you. Even if it's doing it in a misguided way.
So it's like recognizing that it's coming from a place of hurt
and fear.
And it's just trying to, like, keep us safe.
It just wants to keep us safe.
Even if its methods are a little messed up.
Exactly. And once we can see it with that compassion, we can actually start to heal those underlying wounds and reclaim our power.
This has been so insightful, I feel like. We've explored, these 4 key archetypes: the child, the victim, the prostitute, and the saboteur. And I'm starting to see how recognizing these patterns can help us understand ourselves.
Absolutely.
And hopefully make more conscious choices.
Exactly. It's like shining a light on the unconscious, right? And bringing those hidden forces into awareness.
And they're not fixed, right? Like, they can evolve and transform.
Absolutely, as we grow and change. So it's not about labeling ourselves or getting stuck in a box. It's about using this knowledge as a tool for self-discovery and growth.
And don't forget those powerful questions that Myss suggests.
Oh, yes.
How does this archetype show up in your life? What are its positive and negative aspects?
Right, and what lessons is it trying to teach you?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so deep divers. We've reached the end of our deep dive.
It's gone by so fast.
I know. Into sacred contracts.
Yeah.
We've explored some really profound concepts.
We have.
And I really hope you're walking away from this with a new understanding of your purpose and the forces that are shaping.
And those archetypes that are kind of guiding you along the way.
Exactly.
This is just the beginning of your own personal exploration.
Okay.
You know, Caroline Myss's book offers so much information, practical tools to help you go even deeper.
So if you're ready to dive even deeper, grab a copy of Sacred Contract.
Yes, do it.
Create your archetypal wheel and just start exploring those fascinating connections between your inner world and your outer experiences.
Absolutely.
All right, that's a wrap on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring. Keep growing.
Yes.
And keep trusting in the unfolding of your own amazing journey.
Did you get any of that?